Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So the first round of the NHL draft is now in the books. Thank you to everybody that popped out to my live stream, even though we did have some technical difficulties throughout it. It was a really fun time. And yeah, today I wanted to go through kind of my winners and my losers of the first round of the 2025 draft, because it started off pretty chalky, but then it got very interesting with some pretty big trades and some pretty big swings. So yeah, let's dive into it. And up first, my biggest winner is my New York Islanders. I don't think I'm being biased for saying this, considering the fact they started off, of course, with Matthew Schaefer. No shock there, viewed by most as the best player in this draft. He should be a franchise defenseman, especially on the day that they end up trading away Noah Dobson. You lock up your potential franchise defenseman, and then with that 16th or 17th and 17th overall selections, you thought to yourself, what players could potentially be there? And I was definitely sweating as soon as Jackson Smith and Carter Bear went off the board at 13th and 14th overall. Bear first, then Jackson Smith. I started getting very concerned. Thankfully, at 15th overall, Braden Coots went to Vancouver, which I think is a fine pick. But at 16th overall, they're able to get Victor Eklund, a guy that I had 9th on my board. Because you look at this guy, extremely productive in the Swedish second-tier league against grown men. Even though he is undersized, we watched him play against solid competition and be able to hold up physically and offensively. He was pretty damn good. For stretches, was a better player than Anton Frundell. Frundell's definitely a better prospect, don't get me wrong, but Eklund falls to you at 16th overall, much like Cole Eiserman fell to you at 20th overall. And Cole Eiserman definitely has more defects than than a Victor Eklund, but Victor Eklund is a far more balanced player. So that is a fantastic pick. And at 17th overall, I'm not going to say Aitchison is going to be a next level stud, and he's probably not, especially considering he's going to have Matthew Schaefer ahead of him in the lineup in terms of the left-handed defenseman. But Kashawn Aitchison was consistently viewed as a top 12 to 18 guy in this draft, has one of the highest floors in this draft, given his physicality. So you just lock up the left side of your defense basically for the next decade and a half if you're the New York Islanders by having Schaefer, by having Aitchison. Those guys really just fell into the lap where it was a pretty easy decision for Matthew Darsh. And although you definitely would have liked to get Shakins, now I have it as Shaylin's son for the three of them. Considering the fact that I'm sure that they offered the Boston Bruins, I feel like it's not just Hagens or Aitchison or Eklund. Clearly, Darsh offered that. He offered 16th and 17th to Boston. It would have been even more on top of that. So you give me the option, assuming that it was either the Colorado first-round pick or Romanov or Pajot, one of those assets, as well as Aitchison and Eklund or Hagens. I'm picking Eklund, Aitchison, and one of those assets that we probably can eventually flip. That's either is a first-round pick or you can potentially flip down the line for a future first-round pick. I think that this was really good work by Matthew Darsh in his first draft. Obviously, the first overall pick was kind of a shoo-in at that point, but the future of the Islanders look damn good. I think at this point, it's hard to argue that they don't have a top 10 prospect pool. They surely do have a top 10, top 5 of a prospect pool of Schaefer, Yzerman, Ritchie, Eklund, and Aitchison. The future is looking so damn bright. You look at before the trade deadline versus what they have now, things are looking bright on Long Island. And up first for my first loser, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Penguins. First at 11th overall, they select Ben Kindle, a guy that I'm decently high on based on what he did at the WHL level last year in 99 points in 65 games, but is undersized. There is serious risk with him selecting him that high at 11th overall. I think in the late teens, early 20s, you easily take a risk on a guy like Ben Kindle, given the offensive skill. But at 11, that was shocking. Then they trade back in Philadelphia. We might talk about them very soon. They trade back, and then they eventually trade up again, select Bill Zonin. Or no, they don't trade back up. They trade up to go to 24th. They get Bill Zonin at 22nd. Again, I just think a couple spots too high. Late first round guy, early second round guy for me. I think Zonin's perfect for a team that needs NHL bodies relatively soon. I think his floor is going to be very high. There are some skating concerns with him to potentially become a legit star. So for a team like Pittsburgh, isn't really that high of an upside guy, in my personal opinion. And at 24th overall, they select Will Corcroft, who maybe does have that high-end upside, but is going to need a lot of developing, consistently mocked in the early second round for the most part. At 24th, they ended up trading to go do that. So for Pittsburgh, I tweeted it out like, It seems like Kyle Dubas just always wants to try to prove that he's smarter than everybody else in the NHL. Maybe it works out. Maybe it works out. But I think on all three of these picks, he just took them a little bit too high. He took them like 8 to 12 picks high every single time. And I cannot really say Pittsburgh walked away with a guy that has legit star potential. Like, obviously, they wanted McQueen at 11th once he goes to Anaheim at 10th. That maybe threw a wrench in their plans. But their plan was quite flawed today, and as a result, I think that they are one of the biggest losers. Next up, one of the biggest winners, although they only had one pick, Carter Bear is someone that I was ultra high on, being able to get him at 13th overall. He was my number 7 personal prospect. I think as a left winger that could potentially play behind a guy like Lucas Raymond, he is exactly what this team needs in terms of an absolute dog from a compete standpoint, as well as having the skill to potentially give you 60 to 70 points at the next level. Eisman usually reaches for his European guys, takes decent chances on those guys. He goes to the WHL. He gets a guy that I think is going to be NHL ready relatively soon, and a guy that I think does have a decent ceiling. People talk about him really just as a floor guy. I see this as both. I don't see Carter Bear not working out. I don't see Carter Bear not working out at the NHL level. I think he's going to be a damn good NHLer, and if he really reaches his potential, as I said 9,000 times, could be an Arturi Lehkonen, could be a Brandon Hagel, could be a Seth Jarvis. Doesn't have that big build. If he was 6'2", 6'3", he'd be going probably top 6 in this draft. But the way that he plays, he's physical enough to be a 6'2", 6'3" guy by comparison. I absolutely love Carter Bear. I know I get called the Red Wings hater from time to time, but I think that they knocked this pick absolutely out of the park. It's good that they stayed there instead of trading this for immediate help. I think Carter Bear could be immediate help sooner rather than later. In terms of my second loser, I am sticking within the state of Pennsylvania. I'm going with the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't hate the Porter Martone pick. He was my number 4 prospect in the 2025 NHL draft. But at the end of the day, what this team needed badly was a legit potential future number 1 center to play with Matvei Michkov. I don't think Trevor Zegras is going to end up being that. So although Porter Martone was value, I'm not looking at that pick in terms of a loser. I'd still give that a B+, A-. I'm looking at Jack Nesbitt. They gave up the 22nd and the 31st overall pick, and I know that they had 3 first-round picks. I know that they have 3 second-round picks even after the Zegras trade. But Nesbitt is a guy that I thought would be available at 22nd overall. Was this big Nesbitt market that I just wasn't aware of? Like, it is a very confusing pick. It wasn't a guy that you thought would potentially go in this range. Jack Nesbitt is going to be a big work in project for the Philadelphia Flyers. He is 6'4", he is 6'5", but the skating is so bad. And Porter Martone, I think he's going to work on the skating, and I think the high-end skill is enough to bet on. Jack Nesbitt, I don't think the actual skill is there to justify taking him at 12th overall. So it's pretty funny. The two teams within that trade, I think, kind of both ended up losing, considering they reached on guys so much. I think that they should have just waited it out. I don't think Jack Nesbitt is a guy that you have to reach on and trade a late first to go out and get. I tweeted it out. It's wild that they had Zeev Boyum, one of the best defenseman prospects of recent memory, one of the best American defenseman prospects ever, available at 12th overall back in the 2024 draft. They said, nah, we're trading back here. We're getting Jet Luchenko and picking up a 3rd round pick. Versus here, they go and move up to 12th overall to get Jack Nesbitt, a guy that most people had between the 25 to 40 range. I had him 38th. So although, again, it could turn out, if Porter Martone turns into a stud, you're not massively sweating this draft. Just Jack Nesbitt is one of the biggest swings, one of the biggest reaches in this draft for me. My third winner of this draft is going to be the Chicago Blackhawks, another team like the Detroit Red Wings. I have been fairly critical come draft time. The 2024 draft, I didn't love the Artem Leshinov pick. I thought that they should have drafted, obviously, Ivan Demidov. But I think that they killed it this draft. At 3rd overall, although there is a little bit of a mixed consensus on Anton Friendel, he was my 3rd best prospect in this draft. Don't think that he was within the same realm as a Michael Misa, but was my 3rd guy. I think that in terms of the physical profile that he brings to the Chicago Blackhawks compared to a Connor Bedard, a lot more smaller guy. Anton Friendel is an absolute tank beast that uses that weight very well. I think he's the ideal second-line center, although I did like Frank Nazar in terms of being a championship second-line center at his size, there was some concerns with him. You can kick him out to the wing now. At 25th overall, getting Nestrasil, a guy that I had 21st or 22nd on my board. I think that's perfect for Chicago, embracing more of this physicality, high motor, bigger guys. 6'5", Nestrasil, not amazing stats in the USHL, but the way that he progressed throughout the season and then in the playoffs was a point per game player. I think he's going to be awesome for the Chicago Blackhawks. I think that he is that guy, although maybe you wanted Porter Martone at that third overall pick. I'm not saying Nestrasil is going to be Porter Martone, but he can be that ideal power forward within their top six, whether it's with Frundell, whether it's with Bedard. And then they also swing for the fences at 29th. Another big-ass dude, Mason West. Why not take a swing? Somehow, Davidson has drafted in back-to-back seasons guys with D1 football offers. AJ Spellacy last year, Mason West this season. And I think with West, who has not really fully committed to hockey like full-time, he's going to go to Michigan State, the USHL next season. He has all the potential in the world, especially given the fact that he's a quarterback. That vision that you look for quarterbacks is going to translate to the ice. I believe Mason West and Nestrasil are the kind of missing pieces potentially within this Blackhawks forward core that was looking just solely kind of skill, kind of speed. You bring in some big bodies, and I think that could be damn special for the Chicago Blackhawks. Also, I'm not going to lie, I started recording this at around pick 29. I am adding a team in terms of a winner. I am going with the Calgary Flames. The fact that they got Reshney at 18th overall, I gave it an A-. I think considering his playmaking ability, that is a solid pick by a team that seriously lacks high-end offensive guys within their prospect pool right now. I like some of their guys. I like Basha. I like Gridden. Hanzik could potentially be something. Zari and Coronado already at the NHL level. But swinging on a guy like Reshney, despite his size, I like a lot. And then they also took another little bit of an undersized guy at 32nd overall. Colin Potter. I'm sure Grav is going absolutely crazy at that. He had him number 10 on his board. I had Potter at like 19th or 20th. The fact that they got him at 32nd, yes, they did take some smaller guys, but at solid value where they took him. And for a guy like Cronin, I almost said Cronin, Conroy, who is probably not going to be able to fully blow it up and potentially get a top 5 pick, for him to take shots on guys that offer elite playmaking and elite skating in the case of Colin Potter, I think that's damn good work by Calgary. Good for them. Okay, now we're just going to look at kind of every single pick. If you don't follow me on Instagram, here are my grades when looking at it for Matthew Schaefer. A+, viewed as the number one guy, especially after trading Noah Dobson. He was a no-doubt pick. Michael Misa as well. There was Frundell smoke. I never really believed it. Michael Misa is the superior prospect. Chicago, I went with an A. There is a debate potentially for some other guys to go. Instead of Chicago, Frundell is definitely not a sure thing, so I think only an A is fair. Denoyer, A-. Wasn't my number 4 prospect. Actually, Martone was, but I do think that he is more so of a better fit for the Utah Mammoth, considering he is that bigger defensive center behind Logan Cooley. And also after trading JJ Peterka, Martone just didn't really make a ton of sense. Brady Martin. Don't like the Brady Martin pick. Shocker there, especially for a team like Nashville. I could have understood Utah selecting Brady Martin just kind of as that smash mouth second line center behind a Logan Cooley. I could have understood him for Boston. Maybe could have understood him for Philadelphia. Nashville, a team that is just doesn't have that good of a prospect pool or that good of a young core actually on the NHL roster to take kind of a high floor, not really big skill guy is insane to me. Martone, again, I have him as my number 4 prospect just because they needed that center. I still like the pick just because he is so talented, but fit-wise, I don't know if I actually love it as much. Hagens, although I like Martone more as a prospect, Hagens going 7th. The need for a center for the Boston Bruins, the guy that goes to Boston College, just an awesome that he was able to fall to them. O'Brien, they shouldn't be taking a center, but he was arguably the best player available. I actually had Carter Bear ahead of him on my personal rankings, but there was, in my opinion as well, a gap between him and the first defenseman, so I can't kill them, but in terms of team fit, team need, it's pretty egregious, so I ended up going with a B. Then we got 9 through 16. Merca, even though they did get Kesselring, they still have a need for right-handed defensemen, so I like that pick a decent amount, even if he was 13th or 14th on my board. McQueen, A-, 10th on my board as well. Might as well take a shot. You already have a lot of young, solid NHL forwards. Kindle, C+. We talked about it before. Don't love it. Nesbitt, D. Big time reach. I don't really see the vision with that one. Carter Bear, A+, number 7 prospect. Love it. Jackson Smith as well. You could argue I don't love the goalie prospect. We'll get to it that they selected. They could have been a winner, but I think Smith at 14th overall, even though they kind of are set at left-handed defenseman with Zach Rowensky and Denton Matejchuk, awesome pick. Braden Coots, It's fine. He's a Western Canadian kid, plays for the Seattle Thunderbirds. Should be a good second line center. Eklund, A plus though. I don't think that's biased. Again, if you looked at my pre-draft rankings, I had him ninth, then 17 through 24. Aitchison, A minus, should be a damn good second pair guy. We talked about that. Reshny, A minus. You could maybe even argue an A just because I think fit-wise it makes a lot of sense. Taking a swing on a high-level playmaker like Reshny, I love it. Carbonneau was consensusly viewed as a top 12 to 16 guy for the most part, to be able to get him at 19th overall, although maybe not the best fit because they have so many young forwards. At that point, all the top defensemen were gone, so you just go with the best player available, no doubt. Andronov, I don't really know too much about goalies, so I'm not going to like kill them for that, but that seemed a little bit early, especially when they had right-handed defensemen like Logan Hansler available, Blake Fiddler. Cameron Reed, solid pick. I'm not too high on Cameron Reed, but I definitely see the vision with that. Bill Zonin, again, just 5 to 7 picks too early. Logan Hensler, solid at that value. Right-handed defenseman, you easily take him there. Horcroft, not a huge fan. I see somewhat of a vision, but not fully. Definitely not at 24th overall. Then lastly, I have not posted this one on Instagram yet. As you can see, the 25 through 32. Already talked about Nestrasil. I think he's an extremely underrated guy with a very high ceiling, given his overall motor and size. Riker Lee, A minus. He kind of kept Nashville outside of the bat. I did like the Cam Reed, but the Brady Martin was by far the biggest reach. Within the top 10, I think you bet on the hands of Riker Lee. As I talked about in my draft prospect video, he was 5'3" when he was 15 years old, so he's now 6 foot. He's been growing 2 to 3 inches every single year. So although the skating is a deficiency right now, he is kind of adjusting to his body. I'm going to bet on that. Lakovic, A plus for the Washington Capitals, a 6'4" power forward with a bunch of skill. Boymedian, B plus to the Winnipeg Jets, very smooth skating Swedish defenseman. Mason West wasn't extremely high on my board, but again, I do like Chicago taking these big boys compared to what they've done in prior drafts. Take a swing on him. You have so many goddamn picks. Ravensburgen, I don't hate him at 30th overall. I kind of hate him to the San Jose Sharks, considering the fact that they traded for Askarov last summer. Askarov is 5 years older, but it should be his net for the foreseeable future, hopefully. So a little bit weird there. Brustevich, I like Brustevich as a prospect. I don't know why he's going to the LA Kings. They already have Brant Clark. They already have Spence on the right side, unless one of those guys are getting moved. But yeah, you have two very good right-handed defensemen that you already don't play. What the hell are you doing? And then Cullen Potter, as I mentioned before, I started filming this video before that pick dropped. You got to love it for Calgary. Best skater in the draft by a decent amount. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Biggest winners, Islanders, Detroit, Calgary, Chicago. The only two clear losers, in my opinion, again, I could be completely wrong about this, is the two Pennsylvania teams. I did not like the Pittsburgh Penguins or the Philadelphia, more so just the Nesbitt pick. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Going to continue to post draft content I'll have tonight, like a best players remaining heading into day 2. Starts at noon tomorrow. I'll be seeing the next one. Peace.